Order, Tuesday, April 17, 2018, Brooklyn City Board of Education regular meeting. Mr. Street, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Neal?
Here.
Mrs. Barcheck?
Here.
Mr. Singer?
Here.
Mr. Hennings?
Here.
Mr. Rope?
Here.
Everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item is student achievement. I'm going to pass it to Superintendent Glykoff.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. I'm going to bring forth Mr. Yarman, our elementary school principal, and I think he's going to be talking, introducing a couple of folks, talking about a big event coming up for our elementary school.
Absolutely. Good evening, and thanks for having me here tonight. A couple of quick things before I turn this over to our Safe Routes to School and Bike Rodeo and Touch-a-Truck planners. And that is just that we are in the midst of testing season, so our third graders have finished up their Ohio State testing in the area of reading. That was last week we finished that up, and starting next week they will be working on the math portion of that test. So as testing continues, that's the route that we're going. We've also finished up a very exciting program with all of our students, kindergarten through third grade, in the One School, One Book program. Our students either have read or currently are reading because of Winn-Dixie, and we had a lot of exciting opportunities for them over the spring break time to attend some businesses at Rich Park Square. They went on a scavenger hunt and turned in some reading points and reading material for that. So those are a couple things all of our students are doing, and getting everyone in the mood for spring and safety coming up. We also have a Safe Routes to School and an upcoming event in just a couple of weeks in our Bike Rodeo and our Touch-a-Truck. So I'm going to bring up Miss Susie Marquis and Miss Laura. Where's Laura? Oh, she will be calling up Miss Susie Marquis, who is in charge of our Safe Routes to School infrastructure program, part of that, to share a little bit with the community about what we're doing to help keep our kids moving and to keep them safe while they're at school. So, Mrs. Marquis, come on up.
Thank you. Our Safe Routes to School program, have we started? Here.
Is it on? Flip the side there.
Oh,
Make it
thank
green.
you. Some of our accomplishments this year is our Brooklyn Rocks, where for our fall festival we had the kids paint rocks here and we hit them around the walkways for Brooklyn and with a hashtag, and there is a Facebook page dedicated to Brooklyn Rocks with our area code, much like Northeast Ohio Rocks, so the kids had fun doing that. We had our fall festival and our 5K run walk. We completed a student survey, and we also had our walk to school week. Hello, partner. One of the walk to school week was Walk with a Hero, where we had our fire department, veterans, and also our police department join us, and also our city council members. Another part was Walk to School with Your Dad, where we encouraged our male figures in our children's lives to come walk to school. A couple photos from that day. And also a big thank you to our PTA who helped provide refreshments on that day for our fathers and the figures. A little recap of what we did throughout the week. This is a K through 8 program, so we did open it up to the intermediate school. Things that we've been working on as a committee have been our walkability audit, where we walked around the community, looked at our sidewalks, looked at our crossing areas, looked at our paints, curbs, and things that to get our kids walking to school safely. We also had a student survey, a parent survey. Our bike rodeo is coming up May 5th. We have some flyers there that you can get firsthand before they go out officially. Mm-hmm. And May 7th is our Bike to School Day, which we celebrate nationally. So with Safe Routes to School, I just wanted to recap a little bit. If you look at our map, this is provided by ODOT. The center ring is students and kiddos that live within a quarter mile. Green is a half mile, blue a mile, and then the majority of red is our 2 mile radius. So Brooklyn is a very walkable community. We surveyed parents about their opinions and how Brooklyn does educate about walking to school. And they felt that Brooklyn does 48% encourage kids to walk and bike to school. 13 strongly agreed, and 39 were either way. and none of them felt that our schools felt that we discouraged kids from walking and biking. Parents' opinion also showed that they felt it's very healthy for kids to be biking and walking to school, and the benefits, which falls into our education portion that we do with Safe Routes to School. With that said, though, we still have a number of kids who still choose to use their family vehicle. So even though we know it's healthy, we know it's important, we still do choose the car vehicle as a way to get to and from school. So again, looking at that further and wondering why, when we surveyed parents, we found that a majority was the weather and climate, and also looking at the safety measures of the intersection and crossing guards, and then violence and crime. So as a committee, those are things that we are looking at, and also developing countermeasures to encourage more walking and biking to school. And with that, Ms. Paul, we're going to pass out our bike rodeo and our Touch-A-Truck that's coming up May 5th.
It's back at the school.
Back at the school.
So it'll be really nice, a little preemptive strike on the levee.
Thank you.
Well, we're using,
Don't ask me, because
don't
I'm
ask
like,
Susie, all over. Parking will be in the gold lot. The white lot will be the bike rodeo, and the blue lot will be the Touch-A-Truck.
Thank you.
and if you haven't gone in the past, we encourage, for the little ones, we have a hay maze that we do. We also have a safety patrol. Many of our community members come and join us for the Touch-A-Truck, and also promoting some bikes by giving a huge bike giveaway. So it's a nice time. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Well,
appreciate it.
Thank you. If the weather doesn't change, we might be having sledding this school.
Yeah, right.
So,
Touch a sled.
yeah. They talked a lot about what Safe Routes to School has done just within the school, and they're certainly working with people, with the city as well. And so there's a lot going on. There's a great aspect with a connection with the city on that. So, I think they mentioned a little bit an infrastructure grant that they're looking at with the city, which really would look at some walkways around the city that would really kind of help in even give our students and our community more opportunities to walk and bike from kind of north and south in the community. So, good stuff. Thank you, all of you. Appreciate it.
Sorry. Next, we're going to have comments from visitors. In order for the board to fulfill its obligation to complete the planned agenda in an effective and efficient fashion, a maximum of 30 minutes of public participation as it pertains to school-related topics will be permitted at each meeting. Each person wishing to address the board will approach the podium and state her name, and address. If several people wish to speak, each person will be allotted 3 minutes until the total time of 30 minutes is used. During that period, no person may speak twice until all who desire to speak have had opportunity to do so. The period of public participation may be extended by a vote of the majority of the board. If anybody would like to speak, podium, name and address, please.
Tammy Sebastian, 6814 Carmel Heights. So I'll explain why I'm here. Thank you for opening the meeting up to people who are not in the district, because what I'm speaking on, actually I don't have your resolution number, but it's the shared service agreement with Parma City Schools. So Parma City School residents have a lot of concerns about the shared service agreement. I can speak for myself and a few people that would agree that it's not beneficial to Parma City Schools. You guys are looking to see if it's beneficial to Brooklyn City Schools. So I think there were some things that we found out through that you guys need to know before you agree to that contract. One of the things is that we have a brand new transportation director, transportation supervisor. She has never done our routes at all. So she'll be taking on our routes and Brooklyn this year. She actually, when she was called to speak in front of the board, she actually said that there was not a plan yet moving forward. So I'm guessing next year, I'm sure you guys were assuming that there would be some rough patches, but I would say to watch out for like huge ones. Also, the calamity days was a concern for us. We're an extremely large district. We have never been able to pull off a late start or early dismissal. So when asked what would Brooklyn do in that sense, if they were gonna look at that, you guys would just have to take the calamity day when we take them. He said that that was all in the contract, but I just wanna make you aware. You already have days that were embedded in your calendar for next year. They said that we were still gonna accommodate those, so that is a positive for you. Also, they said that as far as your fleet, and I don't know what you guys were looking at in the contract, last year we were taking none of your fleet. This year they said maybe 2, but those are still being assessed and that's not a done deal. So, and there has to be an agreed upon price, that's not there. Also, we talked about pass-through costs. So there is contracted services like Suburban, things that are not like our transportation that are, so we would just, it's just like it sounds, it's gonna be passed through right to you guys. So if those costs rise, it'll go through to you. I just wanna make sure I touched on everything. We understand it, that it's gonna be 6% of our operating cost. We've had a lot of different numbers. So the number that Rusty told us was $58,572 is the 6% of the $976,211. So again, we're just very concerned that you guys or the residents of Brooklyn also know. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to view the contract or the residents can public records request it, but I would encourage them to, because this has been going on for 2 years and we've heard many different numbers going back and forth. So we just encourage you to take a strong look at that contract because it's not always what it seems. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. We go on to the superintendent's report.
There's someone's back.
Oh, go ahead.
I just want to ask a question.
Sure.
My name is Mike Changari. I'm at 8705 Morton Avenue in Brooklyn. Are you guys going to vote on that today, or can we postpone that to another?
Yes, we are.
You're voting on it tonight, even though the numbers aren't all, because I haven't even looked at it. And I was asking a couple other members in the community, they haven't seen it either. Is it going to hurt us later on, or is it going to be helpful later on?
Mr. Neal, part of my superintendent's report is going to be part of that, so.
You guys are going to, okay. That was my
We
only
have a
question.
covered, superintendent will
Because
go
we
through
can't
it.
ask after you guys take the vote. We have to ask now. So-
Correct.
Okay.
The agenda is posted online before our meetings.
Well, but I mean, the contract isn't online, is it?
I think it's there.
Yeah.
I think it's there. Yeah,
It's
it's
in the
online
PDF.
before the
That was my
meeting,
bad
so
then.
that,
Sorry.
yeah.
Okay.
No, you don't.
That's
you
fine.
don't.
No. Thank you for coming
All
up.
right. Thank you. Anyone else? We'll go on to the superintendent's report.
Sure.
Dr. Glykoff.
Thank you.
So, good segue. I've actually got 3 things that I want to kind of touch on tonight. First thing I want to kind of talk about is certainly we've got a big event coming up, May 8th, our levy, and what the importance of that is. And I wanted to talk just briefly about that as well. We have issue 4 that's on our ballot, May 8th. It's a 5-year renewal of $2.5 million emergency levy. Again, that was first approved, I believe, in 2008, so this is the second renewal of that. So why is this so important? Because we've been asked plenty of times, as you as the board, myself as superintendent, why is this issue 4 so important? It's critical to us because even $2.5 million, a little bit different than our neighbors Parma, this is 13% of our budget. This is very significant for us. And it gives us the opportunity to preserve our quality program and our opportunities. Notice what I said there, preserve, kind of keep the things we currently have, not adding anything. And obviously a levy looks at protecting our home values. And so, but I think the piece that we keep telling folks is this, that it is a zero tax increase. It is just a renewal. There is no increase to the taxes in this case. So questions have been, okay, we understand that, but how can we want to support the board, we want to support the schools on this, have they been fiscally responsible as they've gone through the last several years? So, as I've shared this with staff, I've shared it with you, and shared it with others, I want to continue to do that. The last 3 fiscal years, we have been keeping our revenues above our expenses. So as you notice there, we have been living within our means. Each of those years actually, putting, $1.3 million into our cash reserves there. So we're living within our means as we ask our folks here in Brooklyn to live within their means, and I know that they're doing so. Another piece that I want to share with folks is where we are as a per pupil expenditure within the county. And if you'll notice where Brooklyn is here, at about $12,800 per student, where we are relative to other school districts in our county. Certainly down towards the lower end is, you've got some of the districts even up over 20, but on the lower end just about 11.6. So you'll notice that we rate pretty well relative to our kind of county neighbors in terms of that. We're not putting as significant dollars per pupil spending that. But folks have asked us, so well, what have you done, though, to reduce costs? What are the things that the Board of Education, the administration has been doing in order to reduce costs over the last several years? Because I know you're asking for money, but what other things are being done? We've talked about some of these, but I think it's worth mentioning. Suburban Health Consortium, going to a more consortium-based health care to be able to get those. We're now in a consortium which is probably about 25 other school districts. That has helped save the school district about $250,000 a year in health costs. So that's pretty significant. As you know, and we've gone through this the last several years, not replacing some resigning or retiring positions. Some we have to, just out of need, but we look at each one of those to determine, do we need to replace those? And we haven't replaced all of those. That third bullet point down there, looking at our administrative salaries. Over the last several years, if you look at 14-15 and you look all the way, projecting on what we may have even for next year, we've looked at reducing administrative salaries over $50,000. So, that's counter to what you may see in a lot of other places. Those of you who came into the building through the high school noticed probably some folks looking at changing out LED lighting. That's one of the things we're looking at energy saving opportunities. We're not looking to just put in new LED lighting because it's cool. It's because it can actually save us some significant dollars on our energy costs over a long period of time. We're contracting with copiers. It's probably saved us about $20,000, $25,000 a year. It's something. Shared services opportunities, certainly the contract that's in front of you, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And certainly the lobbying we've done down at the State House. We have House Bill 369 that is in committee right now that could directly help us as a school district in terms of getting some funding. So, not only just asking our good folks of Brooklyn to vote for a particular tax levy, but there are efforts that we've made on this end in order to be conservative. But certainly we're up against some fiscal challenges that are outside our control. And I want to kind of highlight a couple of these. Talked about tangible personal property tax. Just to give you a little snapshot, back in 2010, that's only 8 years ago, we received $2.2 million in tangible personal property tax. That was also the year that the state of Ohio said, you know what, we're no longer going to do that. We're not giving the schools the tangible personal property tax. So what they did at that point is they said, okay, they didn't just say, oh, we're going to take it. They said, oh, we're going to phase it out. And now what they've done is they've reimbursed us over the last several years. And these are the reimbursements we've received from the state. Now, there's a lot of numbers here. What's this mean? This is what it means. Since 2010, we've lost over $1.5 million from the state. That's a significant amount of money. What it also means is that over the next 4 years, we're going to lose over nearly $800,000 more. Again, $2.2 million out of our budget. And where do we recoup that? You saw the last page. That's where we're trying to, and you guys have made some prudent decisions in order to try to do that. But that's difficult money to replace within a $16 million budget. So the tangible personal property tax is a difficult thing. I understand, and I've Mr. Street and I were looking at what other districts have got on their ballots right now. The Solon City Schools, I think, have like an 8 mil levy up right now. How are they talking about it? To the fact that they're trying to replace the dollars from the TPP that have been taken from the state. That's their tagline. So it's interesting that other school districts are having the same problems that we're having with that state funding, and they're actually going out for levies on it. This is one that most school districts are having difficulty with as well. We have money that's going off to charter schools. I think we've been staying steady here. If you notice, even between the last couple of years, we've kind of reduced some numbers. With ECOT closing, we recouped some of those students, and they went other places. So, but again, that's a significant amount of money that comes from our coffers and goes off to those charter schools. So, if the renewal fails, this is kind of where we're at. And Mr. Street has spoken a little bit about FY18 already. We're going to be in somewhat of a deficit spending at the end of this year. I mean, that just means for the year, I should say. Thankfully, we've had 3 positive years ahead of it, so we can buffer that. But if the levy fails, you can see what FY19 means. So, certainly issue 4 is significant. It's meaningful, it's important to us because it continues to keep our programming where it is, where we want it to be, and preserves those opportunities that we have for our kids. So, certainly we don't want to think about this, but we have to prepare for that. That's something that, Mr. Street and I have to do. If it did fail, we would begin to start sending a report down to the state to say, what would be the other areas we're going to have to reduce costs in. And certainly, what's that going to mean? That's going to mean class offerings, that's going to mean extra opportunities, certainly looking at extracurriculars, our fine arts opportunities, and starting into our own curricular pieces. So we don't want to think that way, but we have to at least be prepared for that on it. But I try to just kind of point out is really the importance of issue 4. So any questions on issue 4?
Anybody?
Do not.
So the other I spoke a little bit about shared services. This was mentioned by our guest tonight. Let me kind of first paint the picture of where we are in terms of our current status, where we are in transportation. Actually, Mrs. Marquis's picture of the circles was perfect because it talks about where we are, and we provide minimum bus service, which is beyond the 2 miles, and there's not too many students who are outside that window. So really what we do is our bus service really is to our special education and to our Polaris students. If you looked even at the graphic there, they showed, I think, probably like 2 or 3% of our students actually get bused to school. So we're talking about minimally busing in terms of that. The other thing, because of that, the state gives a rating in terms of your ridership. And what they do is they look at the buses that you have, the size of those, and the number of students that are actually on them. And they come up with a ratio for that. Our last ridership ratio is a 0.2. Let me tell you, that's not very good. I think 1.0, I think, is the average, what you should be targeting for. So we are well below that. We've got one of the lowest ratios in the state, just because of the size of our buses and the number of students, really the low number of students that are on. We have an aging fleet. I have this slide actually from a year ago as we were talking about this. Mm-hmm. These are the current fleet and the number of miles that are on them. Now you'll notice, wait a second, Dr. Glykoff, there's a line through a couple of those. Those were irreparable. We actually had to decommission those buses.
Put out to pasture.
Put out to pasture would be another way of saying it. It necessitated us to actually rent 2 buses from the city of Cleveland this past year. So, I mean, this is an aging fleet that we're putting a lot of money into. Case in point, here's our repair costs over the last several years. And our FY18 repairs are up to this point in the school year. I think I shared with you recently, we had a bus that's, I think, needs a new transmission. And so I think we've put some, tied some few things together, and hopefully that'll be working. So we're on tough costs, but a lot of people ask, well, just buy a new bus. New bus costs right now in FY18 are approximately $95,000. Where does that money come from? Typically, school districts will pay for that from your permanent improvement dollars. As we know, we failed the permanent improvement levy last year. We have very limited PI monies to go out and purchase that bus. And so here's kind of the picture of where we're at. So nearly 18 months ago, we sat down with Teamsters, which is part of the membership of that is our bus drivers as well as our bus aides. And we negotiated with them in October of 16 and the ability to go and outsource transportation, so that we have the opportunity to go out and look at getting a third-party vendor for that. So over the last really 2 years, myself, Mrs. Neal, Mr. Street, and others, we've been exploring shared service opportunities with districts. But we've talked about it with kind of a framework in mind, okay? The things that we've emphasized, certainly the safety of our students. We want to make sure that our students, whether special needs, Polaris, whomever, is being placed on safe vehicles for our students. They could provide the service that our students needed, whether it was special needs, Polaris, etc., whatever that was. What we also asked was some sort of job security for our employees that may be displaced. You know, currently we have 5 drivers, we have 4 bus aides with that. So we were nervous about, you know, our employees also within our school district. And obviously, looking at a cost savings for the district. So that brings you to what's in front of you tonight. And you know, we've spent some time going through this, but I want to kind of highlight some of the big things. You know, this contract that's in front of you for shared services with the Parma City Schools, you see, so what does that mean? What it means is that actually we would be contracting with Parma City Schools, and they would be providing the transportation for our students in Brooklyn, starting next school year, okay? So, and I believe our guest spoke about it, but Parma City Schools did approve this contract on Thursday evening, I think by a 4-0 vote. So, let me talk a little bit about it. So, the agreement, and I know we've gone through it in a little more detail, but how it, we will pay them a price. And it's based on a few factors, and going on ridership. Perhaps if we're sending both Parma and Brooklyn students to a particular site, we'll take the percentage, whatever that cost is. If we've got 2 of the 4 students on there, we pay 50% of that cost. Depending on routes, we have 3 in-district routes that they know we have to, you know, supply next year, and they're already in the plans of trying to create those routes and how those would go, based on the ridership that we have for this year. Destinations, you know, certainly in terms of schools, we transport kids to a lot of different places. Prentice, Achievement, Learner School, I can go on. So depending on where the destination of the particular place is, that agreement does reflect that as well. And also the frequency, you know, is it a once a week, is it a twice a week? And also within there, there's built a cost for extracurriculars or athletics. And so we've built some costs in there for that. So if our teams go to, you know, Columbia or they go to Firelands, those are built in.
Those are based on mileage, correct?
They are based on mileage, and they're also based on, you know, the employee salary. So it's a piece there. So so we will pay them an amount based on all those factors, that in exchange for the transportation needs of our Brooklyn City School students. Part of the agreement, we did get what we wanted in terms of our bus drivers and aides having the ability to be hired by Parma City Schools. Last week we had kind of a potential, we sat down, the HR folks from Parma came over and met with interested drivers. and with interested aides and talk to them if this were passed by both boards of, what that would look like, how they would make that transition to the Parma City Schools. Certainly our drivers and aides have the ability also to bump into our Teamsters because they do hold seniority at some particular level within that contract as well. So that we do have that ability built in there. Certainly the bottom line, we look at savings, and again, it's difficult to put this right now because we're talking about ridership of this year based on ridership for next year. But if all things were equal, right now we're looking at probably about a $10,000 to $12,000 savings between the year. It's nominal. If you based it off another year, it might be a wash. But based on our ridership that we know right now, the savings really is in the long run. As I've said before, we don't have the ability to go out and buy new ones. And as you saw our aging fleet, we need a new fleet.
Mm-hmm.
We need one badly. So there is great advantages for us as a school district to be able to have this because Parma's fleet is much younger than ours. And part of the cost is trying to help them also keep their fleet as new as possible as well. So, that's kind of it in a nutshell. I know we spent some time on this contract last week, but what other questions maybe you have for us?
Dr. Glykoff, can you go back to the mileage slide?
For the buses?
Yes. You mean we got almost, good God, 228,000 miles on a 25-year-old bus. Is that even safe to be on the road anymore?
They passed inspection.
Are you serious? That thing passed inspection?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got trucks at the service department that couldn't pass with that many mileage. Huh?
Yeah, you got to realize that the state's really strict on that. I mean, you've got to pass the inspection on
They're
this.
there every
And that
June.
so you got almost 500,000 miles on just 2 buses alone.
Pretty close. Pretty close. You're right.
So if this vote failed, how soon would we have to get new buses? Like next year or something, or what?
The 2000 bus is the one that has the transmission, and that's only got 128,000 miles. And we've had that in the shop probably about 5 times already this year.
Well, like we said, we had to we're renting 2 buses from CMSD this year because those 2 there, the 98 and 99, they weren't able to make it. They wouldn't have passed inspection. Mrs. Neal and I spoke about it. We said we have to do something about that.
So that's close to $190,000 if we had to replace 2 buses right off the bat.
Correct.
And, Mark, I'm sorry, and the
Go ahead.
2010 is actually a handicap bus. It only holds 1 wheelchair, so that bus really we can't use it holds maybe 6 elementary kids at a time, 9 elementary kids, I'm sorry, at a time. So it's not really one that we can use for what we need.
Yeah,
Trips or whatever.
like for athletics, or it's just a special needs bus.
Can you talk about what
I can't believe they get that
the
many
rest of our
mileage.
fleet is Parma interested? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, they have shown some interest in a couple of these buses. Mrs. Neal would know in particular, I think probably the 2010 and one of the
There's
others.
2010 and 2003.
So,
That's got a lot of miles on it too.
I mean, they have shown some interest in those. But truth be told, they're not gonna garner top dollar.
Right.
You think?
No, that many mileage.
What about dispatch? How will that be handled?
To our understanding is that Parma will have a single dispatcher that
Okay.
will be able to be our single point of contact for that. So that if we have a question here or parents have a question, they'll be able to be referred right to that person who
Bless
then
you.
will be able to contact the bus. So it won't be too different than our current setup is, where they would contact, Mrs. Neal's office with Mrs. Ripley and then be able to contact the bus.
They're gonna have do they currently have one?
They do not. This is part of one of their reasons for doing this, is to be able to have a dispatcher.
So then they'll have a dispatcher then not only for their buses, but for every one of our
Absolutely.
routes. So it's a
Yeah.
benefit for them for.
Yes.
Okay, that's their.
Because we've asked them many times, what's the advantage for them? And they've said, they really have always wanted to have that. They have that dispatch, and this now gives them the ability to do it. So,
This is a 1-year agreement,
this is a 1-year agreement.
okay? And there is an exit clause for both sides.
There is.
Anybody else? Anybody else?
And they passed this 4-0?
4-0, yes. I think they had one board member who was absent that year.
Okay.
So.
Let's see what else. Exit clause, And this is, I read the contract, every 90 days, you guys are gonna check and balance each other?
Good
Is it-
point. Yes.
I saw the dates, I can't think of it off the top of my
Actually,
head.
we will do it quarterly, which means we understand that ridership, in particular with special ed routes, sometimes can be variable. So we've built in that on the quarters, so I think October 1, January 1, April 1, we'll be looking and sitting down and saying, okay, well, how has our ridership changed? Because maybe theirs has changed as well.
Right.
And there's a different ratio on a particular bus. So that will give it some flexibility. So we won't say, oh, on the first day we had 10 kids on a bus and, oh, 4 of them aren't there on the third day. Oh, we're gonna pay for them. No, we're gonna be able to have that ability for that to be flexed. I'll bring it up because Calamity Days was brought up. You know, certainly Calamity Days, we've talked significantly with Parma about that. I'm trying to recall the exact language, but certainly if their buses are unable to be, get out and drive, then we would be unable to get our students. Hence, we probably would be closed on those given days.
Right.
So there's very few times where Parma and I we're off differently. But I should say that it happened, probably their most recent Calamity Day
6,
was
8
one,
weeks ago, right?
where it was
Yeah.
the kind of the 480 snowstorm, if you will. So, but those occurrences could happen.
And they'll be able to accommodate every one of our sports, musical events that we travel to. No
Correct.
matter what our schedule, they will be able to accommodate
Yeah.
all of those.
They have similar parameters in terms of during the school day field trips, which we don't have many as it is. So their hours are pretty much crunched within the school day like we do. But we've asked them and said, what about our extracurriculars and our athletics? And they said, absolutely. So.
And our
I think you
calendars.
mentioned the drivers that want to come over into Parma from Brooklyn they have their choice of maybe taking the old Brooklyn routes as well.
That's a good point. I haven't had that confirmed, so I don't want to.
Okay.
But what I do understand, Mr. Oper, is that they were going to speak with their drivers union.
Mhm.
And if that was okay, that if we had Brooklyn drivers that were coming over to Parma, that they would have the ability to bid on the Brooklyn routes first
Because it's a bidding
during
process. Okay.
during the first year of the contract.
Mhm.
So, we had not gotten confirmation on it, but they were sitting down with the union on it. Because that's obviously something they're going to have to negotiate.
Right.
But they were looking to pursue that.
Our calendars don't have to be identical also
No.
either.
No,
For the school year.
we understood that. Mr. Singer?
Has anything progressed as far as, I know we discussed the use of our bus garage, possibly for storage for our buses. Is there any further discussion on that?
There isn't at this point, but we've offered that as an opportunity for them. Because certainly that would kind of work into the whole idea of a shared services. But at this point, they've said that they don't want to necessarily have dual
Hubs.
garage and hubs.
So everything would come out of Ridge Road?
That's correct.
Will the board get an update on the quarterlies?
Yes,
All right.
absolutely.
Anybody else?
No,
Bob? Bonnie?
I'm good.
Rick? Jim?
Good.
Thank
Okay,
you.
then I'm gonna hand it off to Mrs. Bobichek real quick. She just has a couple of quick academic things to
Thank you.
talk about real quick.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. We have a couple of exciting things coming to the high school first school year, 18-19, next school year. Wanted to share those pieces with you. First, we have a few new courses that are being offered. One being AP, or Advanced Placement Government, where kids are really going to get into discussions regarding analyzing our current United States government and politics, which will be very engaging, I'm sure. We have an introduction to computer science, which is new, and that's all of these are elective courses, and that's a semester course, an elective. And kids will get into coding and computer programming, and we're actually partnering with a nonprofit or philanthropic organization, and they're going to help us bring in people that are actually working in the field in those jobs right now to work with our teacher and give kids those hands-on experiences related to computer science. And then the last one is a leadership academy, and again, that's a semester elective course, and it's open to all the high school students. And it's really about developing our young leaders. So they'll have opportunities to engage in public speaking, in working in group and individual projects, working with the community, and problem solving, and developing those skills as they prepare for their futures. So those are some exciting classes. We've had a very strong interest from kids in all three of those as well. The next thing, it involves the core courses in science, so all of our students at the high school eventually be impacted by this. And if you look over on your left-hand side, the class of 2021, that's currently what our kids, 2021 and previously, the sequence of their science classes essentially, that most kids follow. What we are doing next year is changing it. So our freshmen for next year, the class of 2022 and beyond that, will be taking 8th grade science, which is the same. But then in 9th grade, there's going to be a change. And we're taking biology out of 10th grade year and moving it into 9th grade.
Oh, God.
And so some of the reasons for that you can see down below. There's the natural progression from 8th grade life science right into biology, those concepts, without a gap in a school year between those. The next thing is we intend that we're going to have more kids enrolled in chemistry. Because what happens is, in our current sequence, if kids are going into Polaris in their junior and senior year, which we have a large portion of our kids that do, they miss out on the flexibility in some of their scheduling, and therefore they may not be able to fit in chemistry. So they have to choose other options, and some of those kids are involved in classes at Polaris that offer them their science credit, but again, they're not getting the chemistry. So this we'll have a better opportunity for our kids to take chemistry as sophomores. So increase that enrollment. And with that, the benefit of that is that they will have a full year of science under their belts before they go in to take their ACT or SAT. Additionally, they have the opportunity to take physics earlier, which again, they'll have that foundation as well going into taking the ACT and SAT. And those at a basic level, those contents are covered in the ACT, so they'll be better prepared for those exams. And then the last benefit to the kids, we have, our kids have to take 7 end-of-course exams throughout high school. And so moving biology to the 9th grade year disperses that a little bit. So right now, like our class of 2021, they're taking 4 of their 7 end-of-course exams in their sophomore year. This new next year and going forward, they'll have 3 in their freshman year and then 3 in their sophomore year. So it disperses it a little bit. And if kids are struggling and they need, they will have more opportunities as well to take that biology exam as they progress through high school too. So those are some benefits directly to the kids, the students. And then lastly, this is another piece that would impact all of our high school. So this is, you may have heard of this, it's referred to as Naviance very, very often. The company itself, their pronunciation is Naviance, and that comes from navigation. And so I was thinking about how do I explain how this robust, cumbersome software program or online program, what it offers. And so I really took it from the philosophy of that navigation. And so if you think about a GPS, and you get in your car, and sometimes you get in your car and you're like, I know where I'm going, but I need to know the fastest route. So you plug in the address, and your GPS takes you along the route. It might give you voice guidance to help you along that way to get to your end goal. Sometimes you get into your car and you're in a new city and you don't know where you're at, but you're like, we need to eat dinner, so I'm gonna look for a restaurant. And your navigation will ask you a series of questions. Do you want Chinese? Do you want Italian? What type of food? And so on, to get to know what you want, your interests, and then it will, again, then provide you a map and guidance along the way of how to get to your destination. So, and that's very simplistic analogy. That's what the Naviance system will do for our high school kids. So they come into high school, and it's about mapping out a plan for them, saying, you know, let's get to know you as a student, as where you are right now in 8th grade, 9th grade. What are you interested in? what do you think about in your future? What are your strengths? And it will give kids different questions and assessments to kind of figure that out. What are their interests? What are their strengths? And then start pairing those up and saying, oh, well, if you're interested in this, this might be a career cluster that you might be a good fit for you. And, oh, if you're interested in that career, then you might want to pursue this secondary education. And these are good opportunities, colleges that would offer that to help you get there. So again, guiding you along the path to reach your end goal. Whether you know what your goal is when you walk in the door in high school, or you're still not sure yet, it's about learning about yourself, exploring what options are out there that match your interests and your strengths, and then mapping out that plan to get you there. The other piece of it, if you've gone down this path, and I know I'm looking at the audience, and there's some of our staff members that have talked about it with their kids recently about going through navigating that whole system to applying to colleges and so on, and how cumbersome it really is. This also is kind of like a storage place where it keeps all of your information and paperwork, if you will, organized. The school has access, the student has access, and there's a family connection component as well. So it kind of keeps everything organized in one place, and is a communication between those three, you know, the student, the parents, the school staff, as well as the colleges or the post-secondary options that they're applying to. We'll keep it all kind of organized in one place for the student as well. Questions on that?
We do something similar at work called DISC assessments. Is this similar to that?
I'm not familiar with that, to be quite honest with you.
Where you're basically graphing out the strengths and weaknesses and things that might pique interest for us as employee, but in this case it'd be the student.
It does have an assessment piece built into
Right.
it that kids can take, I think, multiple times during their career. That does, and as Mrs. Bobenchek said, it kind of helps guide them and says, oh, based on your responses, you might want to consider this, or you might want to consider this. It's a great tool, software tool, that, believe it or not, we're the last first-ring district to actually have. And so, you know, it also we're looking at as connectivity amongst our districts so that we can be able to kind of monitor how our kids and where our kids are interested and what they're doing and how they're doing. So.
The other question I have is, if you'll go back one of the frames, in the last, are there any changes in the 12th grade for what electives we're offering in sciences? Will there be any changes in
Not for next year, not at this point in time.
It's been a couple of years, well, maybe more than a couple of years since I took physical science. Was that more of a bridge from science into biology?
No, it wasn't. So the life sciences?
I just want what was behind the elimination of the physical science piece of it, since from.
Why was that sequence before?
Yeah. Well, why is in 2022 it's not, and then it's there in 2021?
Well, that's what we're moving away from, if
Okay.
I'm understanding.
Well, I'm just wondering. I like I said, I can't remember exactly what physical science, how they differ from 8th grade science.
The 8th grade science encompasses life science as well, so they have physical science, life science, and earth science as part of the 8th grade curriculum. Physical science wouldn't have any life sciences at all. So it's like you're exposed to some life science, then you get a year completely focused on physical science, and then you jump back into life science and biology.
Okay.
So going from 8th grade, you're going to have exposure to life science, and then biology is going to build on
Okay,
top of
it's
that.
sequences, but
Yes.
okay, gotcha. Okay.
Anyone else?
The last piece with this, with the Naviance program is also, we are purchasing it through a grant, one of the title grants that we got, so we are having a huge savings also by collaborating with, joining a consortium with other school districts that have not had the professional development yet, so we're taking that cost that we would have taken on individually, and we're saving over $8,000 by working with other districts and pairing up with them for the professional development to use all the tools that are available through the system.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Ms. Bobenchek.
Thanks.
That concludes my report.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
We'll go on to the treasurer's report. Mr. Street.
I'll make it brief. I'll just say ditto to Dr. Glykoff's levy report, and that's, I'm cheating off you tonight, Mark, so that's all I have.
Next month, Mr. Neal, I'd like to have the treasurer's report before the superintendent's report. I'd like to have that opportunity.
Mr. Street said ditto.
I create the agenda, so that won't happen.
We're going to go on to comments from board members, board committee reports. Tonight's going to be Mr. Oper.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to thank everybody who came tonight and the Safe Routes to School presentation. At our Polaris meeting last week, we had a presentation of our guaranteed maximum price money breakdown for the building project. This was handled by both the contractor and the owner's agent. The rationale for each line item was discussed pretty thoroughly. There's been roughly $6 million taken out of the original bond total of $55 million. It's earmarked for to bring the technology up to 21st century standards. Any savings from the line items when bids are open and chosen will be pumped back into new equipment. Any repurposing of old equipment is being done as well. For example, using the existing kitchen hoods for the restaurant after some refurbishing will save almost $600,000 in the kitchen. The spring issue of, it's called A La Carte magazine. It's published by the Ohio Food Service Industry, features Chef O of Polaris and students on the cover. The 2018 Polaris graduation ceremonies will take place next month, May 21st at Grace Church in Middlebrook Heights at 7 p.m. In my legislative report, House Bill 369, which Dr. Glykoff referred to, is the one that directly impacts Brooklyn, and our pre-pupil funding has been referred back to House Committee, as Dr. Glykoff mentioned. Two others that are also I'm looking at are House Bill 591, which is overall the state report card, which the express purpose of putting more emphasis on student growth measures and removing a letter grading system that was argued that really obscures true school achievement through, I guess, bizarre measurements and calculations. The other is House Bill 360, and this bill, with the topic being rather upfront in Brooklyn minds over the last few months, takes aim at bullying, and it's directed to set up a standard framework for schools statewide using an even approach. It's designed to give flexibility to districts in handling a first complaint of bullying, but on subsequent offenses, it provides for suspensions for the students who have found to have been the bully. Even then, the student will have flexibility, the district will have flexibility in how long the suspension lasts and whether the suspension will be in school or not. The bill offers help to victims of bullying as well, giving them the same assistance. Again, finally, please vote yes on issue 4. I don't want to repeat more of Dr. Glykoff's superintendent report and say ditto. But I think what my fellow board members will be stating in their reports also, please know that our dollars that we receive are not wasted. There's a lot of thought given to where and how they're spent. Personnel changes and other decisions are always made with two things in mind: how it impacts student learning and how it impacts the bottom line. Far too often these two run together, and it really shouldn't be the case. Finally, I would also like to congratulate the 261 honor roll students and 152 merit roll students and the 29 Brooklyn Scholar athletes. And if you need to reach me, my email is james.oper, O-P-E-R, @brooklyn.k12.oh.us or 216-485-8195. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Oper. On to Mr. Singer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank the staff for the presentation for Safe Routes to School. Always a great event. Hopefully we won't have snow or rain this year on May 5th. Encourage everybody in the Brooklyn community to attend. It's a lot of fun. Congratulations again to our Brooklyn athletes in the Winter League. Continue to make us very proud, and I look forward to seeing our track, baseball, and softball teams have a very successful season if we ever get decent weather. Please mark April 28th on your calendar for the Taste of Brooklyn to be held at the Copperstone Party Center there on Bidolphin Ridge. Tickets are $15 per person. You can pick up tickets at the board office. It's a great event. It's a sampling of some of Brooklyn's finest restaurants, get a sampling of their food, and better yet, you get to listen to our student jazz band. I may sound redundant after Mr. Oper and Dr. Mark, but please vote this May 8th to renew our emergency operating levy. There's a lot of chatter about using this money to fix our buildings, and I want to make it very clear that this money is really strictly for operating, to pay teacher salaries and benefits and buy toilet paper and pay the light bill and so forth. So the reality is this money is needed to keep our classrooms staffed. And as Dr. Mark said, you know, we're not looking for growth in staff. We're looking just trying to maintain, keep our heads above water. Some ask why, and when I say some, you know, I'm talking about the nefarious Facebook accounts. Some are asking why we didn't include the $1 million estimate for the roof when we built a new school. And I was fortunate or unfortunate, you know, to be during that time, during the housing bubble, when property values went down. I just want to let you know this, and my fellow board members can hopefully attest to this, is that repairing the roof and doing the terrazzo floors, we had a whole bucket list of things we wanted to do to the high school. And it was on our bucket list and included in what we wanted to raise as far as funds for the bond. However, after the Cuyahoga County evaluated Brooklyn's capacity for borrowing, we can only borrow, folks, what the county tells us we can borrow. And because property values dropped, our request dropped as well. So we're talking about almost $5 million in a reduction. So when we looked at everything else that we wanted, we were lucky to basically have enough money to build our K-7 schools and do a few other things to build our, put turf, AstroTurf on our fields. This is why we struggle to repair versus replace buildings left. I mean, ideally, if you remember way back when, we were looking at a whole brand new campus, you know, not only K-7, but K-12 campus originally, and that had to be pared down. So this struggle is going to be ongoing. I can let everybody know, and hopefully we'll find a remedy for it in the near future. But we always have strived as a board member here, and I thank my fellow board members and Dr. Mark and John, that and also I have to reach out to Sandy Neal too, that we're finally getting together to produce a maintenance plan. You know, when I look at that new building, I also look at what that building might look like in 5-10 years. That building is supposed to last us anywhere from 30 to 40 years at least. So we have to make sure that we maintain these buildings, whether it's the high school, which is ancient to building standards, or to our new school. We have to find monies to continue to maintain these buildings. The state of Ohio has so far been no help. As Jim Oper had mentioned, there's some legislation trying to give us some relief, but as most of you know, with large government institutions, things move very slow at a molasses pace. So I'm not looking for anything that's going to happen this year. So what we can control with our future is to make sure issue 4 passes. If you have any questions, and I was planning on walking this weekend, but Mother Nature decided against me. But I do hope, I hope the weather's going to be good this weekend. If you're willing to walk with me to support issue 4, always love the company. We could talk, ask questions, get answers for you. And I can be reached at, the best way to reach me is actually through my cell phone, 216-978-1931. Again, 216-978-1931. You can text me as well. Best way to get a hold of me or get me through the school building. But see you on May 28th for the Taste of Brooklyn.
April 28th.
I'm sorry, April 20th. My apologies.
Thank you. On to Mrs. Barczyk.
Thank you, Mr. President. My board report was on my iPad, and I seem to be having difficulties tonight with my iPad, so I'm going to be kind of winging it tonight. So bear with me, please. Thank you, Mrs. Sebastian, for coming and speaking. Thank you so much. I know it's not an easy thing to do. Being up here every month, I know speaking in front of people is not something easy to do. But thank you for coming and sharing your thoughts. Thank you to Mr. Yarman and the staff about the Safe Routes to School. We appreciate your presentation. We would also like to, I would also like to congratulate all of our students who are on the honor merit roll and our scholar athletes. Thank you so much. I would also like to extend out a thank you to Sandy Neal and her team for the work that they've done, always what they're doing to help keep our buildings in the shape that they are. They keep them in such great shape, and after the rain we experienced on Sunday, I thought we should all kind of build an ark and maybe build a boat. And I know we had some problems in the building, but Sandy was here. Sandy handled it. It was taken care of. And I know there is some chatter, as Mr. Singer said, but I know that our student safety is our top priority. And everything that we do is with that in mind. And I know that we're trying to do everything we possibly can, but things can only be done in as fast a manner as they can. Construction isn't done overnight, so repairing a roof or making repairs to classrooms, bathrooms, hallways is not a process. Nothing can be done within an hour and fixed, but we are working on it. Nothing is being neglected. Sandy is on top of everything. We are going forward, and things are being handled and taken care of. And I just want to thank you personally, because I know that when we have flooding on a Sunday evening at 11 o'clock at night, you're up here handling it and taking care of all of it. Thank you so much. I would also like to wish good luck to our spring sports if they ever get to play. I know that our softball JV team has had I think today should have been game 8 and they've played 1. So whenever they get out there onto the field, I'm sure I wish them all luck. I would like to thank all those who came out and supported and helped us put out yard signs. And if you're interested in having a yard sign and don't have one, please contact one of the board members, Miss Pam Vercio, Mrs. Mary Copland, Superintendent. We'll be able to get you one of our cool new yard signs. I love them. I think they're very, the yellow and blue ones, definitely Brooklyn. I like those a lot. I would also, in discussion of issue 4, I think people say all the time that we shouldn't tell people and let them know what we shouldn't threaten people. And we're not threatening anyone, but this is a renewal. It's 13% of our budget. If we don't pass it and we don't have that money, we cannot maintain status quo. It's a 0 tax increase. It is not a tax increase. It's a renewal. It is a renewal. Please vote yes. If you have a student, if you don't have a student, for your property values, just to keep our community strong, keep what we have, keep offering what we have, keep our programming, keep all of the staff that we have, and all of the extracurriculars, and all the opportunities we give for students. Please vote yes to our 0 tax increase, issue 4, and that I believe. And if I can always be reached at 216-406-4304. If anyone would like to talk to me about anything that's related to the school, I can always be reached that way. I think that's everything, but I'm going to go home tonight and be able to find that report, and I'll be like, oh, I forgot to say all those things. But thank you, Mr. President. That's what I have for tonight.
Thank you. On to Mr. Hennings, please.
Thanks, Mr. President. We had a rec board meeting yesterday. They asked me to make sure everybody knows that Camp Brooklyn will be taking place this year from June 11th to July 20th. It'll run Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 2:45. Registration will go from May 1st to June 1st. All Brooklyn residents are allowed to sign up, plus any of the any students from St. Thomas More, Heritage Christian School, Parma Heights, will get a corporate registration rate. There will be field trips involved, so there's going to be a lot of stuff to do. The only day that it won't be in place is July 4th. The activities that they'll be having is a 4th of July pool party, but it's not going to be on the 4th of July. They'll have a talent show, a water day, ice cream social, a movie day, a field day, and the end of the year picnic with for their field trips. The age groups are 4 and 6-year-olds, and for the 5-year-olds, you must bring a birth certificate for registration of all 5 and 6-year-olds. There will be a 7 and 8-year-old, 9 and 10-year-old, and 11 and 12-year-olds. So that everything you need will be online also, or you can simply call up to the rec center and get any more information. There will be the price for this for Brooklyn residential fee is $275, and for those other ones that are getting the corporate rate will be $345. Again, there will be a parent meeting on Thursday, June 8th at 7 p.m. You can contact Rebecca Bendis for that. as Bonnie said, the baseball teams haven't been able to get out and play too much, but the track team has. And they do have a track team tomorrow at home. I believe it's their senior day, their senior night, or so. Please go up and check them out. Give them a holler. I think they play Fairport Harbor, and I can't remember. There was it was a tri meet. Hopefully they can beat Fairport Harbor. The football team did. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. For my report, I have a technology committee meeting April 26th, 8 a.m., correct? Is that what we just scheduled?
We did.
All right. Finance committee, that just turns into a levy committee / school finance. I do want to congratulate I saw your Twitter feed the other day, Power of the Pen.
Yes, they call it Penn, Ohio now, but
Penn,
yes,
Ohio.
yeah.
Power of the Pen contestants, I wish them all the luck.
That was on my list. See, that was one thing I forgot. Thank you, Mr. Neal.
You want to back it up a little?
And I do want to thank all the levy committee members, Mrs. Virgil, she's doing a wonderful job heading that committee. All I can say is May 8th, we need to put the pedal to the metal. This Thursday, I will be passing out literature in the parking lot to all the cars that are sitting here waiting for their little kids. Mr. Sebastian, I would like to thank you for your insight. What I can promise from this school board is if this passes this evening, that we will do our due diligence. There are going to be, I believe, some bumps in the road. I don't believe they're going to be big ones. It is a one-year agreement, from my understanding. So will we have glitches? I think we'll have some glitches. All right? I think it'll be fair for everybody. We're a pretty reasonable kind of people on this side of 480. You know?
Not worried about it.
Yeah, I understand. So I think if it does pass, then we will, you know, we'll stay on top of it. I can promise you that. We appreciate that.
Can I say one quick thing?
Go ahead. I am.
You guys are really tight-knit. You guys are going from what it seems like a Cadillac and very personalized service, which is great, to mass transportation. It's something to think about.
Totally understand. Totally understand.
Real tight-knit, it's awesome. I mean, it really is, compared to our board meetings.
Totally understand. We appreciate your insight.
Thank you.
And we will work on it. All right, thank you. Bike rodeo, touch a truck. I know a few years ago, my granddaughter won a bike or two, so that was a good thing as well, May 5th.
Nice.
So I think last year's weather was pretty bad. It was windy and about 42.
Rain.
It was a nightmare. So hopefully, knock on wood, weather permitting, it works out. With all that said, I'm trying to think if I touched all my bases. May 8th is a very important day. I think we'll get it done. We just got to keep working on it. It's like, I think the old saying is, how many times has the state been found guilty of not fixing financing for school 4 different times, and they still haven't done anything yet? So that's what we're all up against. It's just not Brooklyn City Schools. So we're going to move on to approval of minutes and financial statements. And tonight's reader is Mr. Jim Oper.
Thank you, Mr. President. Resolved that the minutes of the following Board of Education meetings be adopted and all action taken by the Board of Education at said meetings are hereby reaffirmed and approved. Regular meeting, March 20th, 2018. Special meeting, April 9th, 2018.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mr. Street, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Roper?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the financial statements and receipts and expenditures for the month of March 2018, including all purchase orders paid and all then and now statements for the month of March as submitted.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second? I'll
Second.
second it. Mr., questions, comments? Anything?
If you just want to look at the cash flow statement that's on there, we're getting close to the end of the year. Here we're April 17th, and we just had May and June to get through. As Dr. Gleikoff pointed out, our expenditures are over our revenues this year, but the cash flow statement will point that out. So.
Okay, thank you. Why? You want to point something out on there, or no? You good?
We're good.
All right. Anybody else? Questions, comments? Mr. Street, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Roper?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby commends the following students for their academic and athletic achievements as noted in the attachment. As noted.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Keep up the hard work. We're very proud of you.
Mr. Roper, can you repeat the number of what?
261 on the honor roll, 152 on the merit roll. 29 student athletes. Gave you something to do during lunch.
Okay, there.
There you go. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Mr. Street, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Roper?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby authorizes the superintendent to enter into an agreement with Cuyahoga Community College, University of Akron, and Kent State University to qualifying students for College Credit Plus during the 2018-2019 school year per the attachments.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
These are pretty standard agreements. We work closely with our dual enrollment with University of Akron, so that's appropriate. We have students who attend classes at Tri-C, so that's appropriate. Kent State, again, we might have some kids who might want to pursue some of those classes, so they really could pursue any university, but this solidifies the agreement in terms of the cost that the kids would have. So,
Appreciate that.
Do we have a cost savings with these three schools?
not necessarily. College Credit Plus pretty much has come up with what they call a ceiling cost on that. I think it was somewhere about $40 per credit hour, which if you know the going rate right now is
yeah.
significantly higher than that.
Yes.
So that's what it does. It solidifies that number. So
Okay.
sometimes you can get an agreement with a university that might be lower, but the state has now frowned upon that, doing that kind of individual bartering, if you will. So.
Do we have any idea how many of our students are taking advantage of our College Credit Plus? Do we have any idea?
We do. I would like to get that figure probably I can get that to you in the report this week. So.
Yeah, because I definitely think it's something that is such a, asset for public education. The opportunity that students have for that I don't think parents realize and understand, is when we're always talking about choosing Brooklyn and how, the opportunities that they have. And I think it's something that, I wish more students knew about and wish more students took advantage of, because our students are definitely capable of, and I think it gives them that push to going on to college.
We can get you that figure of how
Thank
many.
you. Thank you.
Can we also, Dr. Mark, if we get the pass-through ratio on that, how many kids are signing up for the class and how many are finishing that course? Do we have that available to us?
Probably could get that as well.
Do we see any, I'm sure we're probably seeing a rise in the numbers with our dual enrollment class also, because they're staying on campus, so I'm sure that's probably grown from the first year that you started that, when you came here. Yeah, and then
I
now
think,
it's,
certainly we've seen more opportunities for that. I'd be curious to see what our numbers have grown. But again, it's also where we are financially. I mean, we can't really just offer, an extensive amount of those. But we do offer them, I think, a good percentage for the size of the school we are in the opportunities for our kids.
Didn't we just had a class this year, the speech class, that we didn't offer in years past too?
I believe so, yeah.
And that you're gonna,
We had it last spring as well.
yeah, last spring as well, yeah. So, thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Street, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Roper?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the application for the following fundraising activity on file in the Treasurer's Office, first grade. The event is Donors Choose, and the date is summer 2018.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
This is a crowdfunding fundraiser, which many of you know online. You ask for donors online. This first grade class is looking at trying to fund 3 different things, doing Create Learning at Home packages, which is a great opportunity. The classroom's involved in a global read aloud, so enhancing their books and their library there, as well as money to help supply for the snacks for kids, and some of them aren't able to bring some of those to school. So a really great opportunity. So hopefully you approve that.
Is there a website that's going to be available to anybody?
You know what? This is Mrs. Grodek's. I think it's just Donors Choose. Yeah.
So it is.
And then we would just search Brooklyn City Schools to find your Donors Choose on there. Okay.
Anybody else? Mrs. Street, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Roper?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Resolved, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby authorizes the superintendent to enter into an agreement with Lake County Educational Service Center, prepared by the governing board of the Lake County Educational Service Center for services for the 2018-2019 school year, as noted.
Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
I'll second it. Mr. Street, or questions, comments, I'm sorry?
Yeah, can I jump in?
Absolutely.
This is what Mrs. Bobencheck alluded to when we talked about the professional development for Naviance. And kudos to her for this, because as she mentioned, we've been talking with Naviance for some time about professional development. It's pretty costly. It's about $10,000, and we were like, gulp. So where are we going to do that? And so she's really worked with some folks out of our ESC and some other districts, and hence this agreement has come up where we could get it for a fraction of that, for just over I think $1,000. And now we've gone in with a consortium. So this is just a great opportunity for us. So.
Anybody else? Mr. Street, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Roper?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby authorizes the superintendent to enter into a shared services agreement with the Parma City School District Board of Education for purposes of pupil transportation, as noted.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
You know, is certainly, I don't know if I need to say much more, but, you know, I think this is a good opportunity. As Mr. Neal said, this is a one-year contract. You know, so we have the opportunity to kind of do this. I see the long-term benefits for us in terms of this. I got to tell you, when we were exploring this even last spring, you know, we had a conference call with Bob Harmon, who's the transportation director for the entire state. And when we talked to him about this, he said, this is a really good idea. This is what school districts should be looking to do, is really look at shared service opportunities. So that helped us at a point when we were unsure to kind of confirm our feelings about where we were going and what we were attempting to do here. So, you know, I certainly feel confident, and I hope that, you know, you give this some consideration.
Anybody else? Do want to let everybody know that it's not the first time we've saw this contract. All the stuff in the contract we have spoke about at other meetings as well, at work sessions as well. I do want to let everybody know that's not the first one.
It's been 2 years in the making.
Yeah.
Actually, we've been discussing it
Correct.
for 2 years, so it has been. Yeah.
Anybody else? Mr. Street, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Roper?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves granting limited contracts for the 2018-2019 school year to the teachers named below. Compensation and/or steps to be determined by negotiated agreement.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
You know what, did you do an as noted? Did I cut you off?
I said named below. I mean,
Okay. I apologize.
Yeah, I should
if
probably
did.
start saying as noted all the time.
And as noted, all right.
No problem.
Did we get a motion already?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Dr. Glykoff?
These are the April limited contracts, so these folks have limited one-year contracts going on for next year.
So can you explain the difference? So with the limited contracts, they're only guaranteed 1 year?
That's
whereas if they're tenured and they...
A continuing contract
Correct.
means that you won't see their contract come up in front of you year to year. Limited, you will. You know, the other thing is too, certainly if, you know, we don't like to speak about this, but certainly if we ever had to riff, we could riff at any given time. And certainly, you know, looking at RIFs, you probably, reduction in forces, you would look at your limited contracts first before continuing contracts.
Okay. Is that in the, like, union language that you do get to do that, or is that you have to do that, or is
That's part right now in the contract, but there
Okay.
is some statute that's trying to move away from that as well.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Street, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Roper?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Resolved, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves granting a continuing contract to the teacher Named below, per the completion of all documentation as required by Ohio Revised Code, Ching-Ling Huang, Class 5, Step 11.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Questions, comments?
Certainly recommend Ms. Wong for continuing contract. We are very fortunate to have her, especially to be offering Chinese face-to-face instructor in our high school. So, but she's a wonderful instructor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Street, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Roper?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Resolved, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the change of hours for Cynthia Tellup for the remainder of the 2017-2018 school year, effective April 13th, 2018, from classroom assistant 6.5 hours per day, Appendix B, Step 14, to classroom assistant 6.666 hours per day, Appendix B, Step 14.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Simply a 10-minute increase due to a student's needs.
Thank you. Mr. Street, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Roper?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Resolved, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the employment of the following personnel for the remainder of the 2017-2018 school year. J.C. Rowland, playground monitor, 2 hours, 50 minutes per day, Appendix B, Step 1, effective April 3rd, 2018.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second? I'll second it. All right. Questions, comments? Just another adjustment?
Yeah, well, Ms. Rowland's filling a position that was vacated by another person who took on a classroom assistant position, so.
Gotcha. Thank you. Mr. Street, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Roper?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Resolved, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the employment of the following substitute personnel for the remainder of the 2017-2018 school year. Margaret Vassi, custodial cleaner. J.C. Rowland, bus monitor, cafeteria, classroom assistant, library media, and secretary on call. Beverly Kren, cafeteria, classroom assistant, custodial cleaner, and playground monitor, effective April 10th, 2018.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
No, just some of our employees like to be also referred to as classified sub-on-calls or sub-positions in other categories.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Street, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Roper?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Resolved, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the following person for the 2018-2019 supplemental teaching assignment with the provision that such individual comply with all rules and regulations and State Department of Education regulations pertinent to proper certification, fulfills requirements of the job description attached to their supplemental contract. Laura Paul, Intermediate School Memory Book.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
I think Ms. Paul's here tonight. She's been actually doing a lot of this supplemental during the year, and now this makes it official that she'll actually be paid for that, so.
What is it, a yearbook?
Should that have said 2017,
Oh, is it?
2018 then?
No, we never had one
It
when
should
I was
say
here for years.
2017,
Intermediate.
2018.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Junior high back
John.
then.
We won't hold it in next year.
2017, 2018, right?
Yeah.
yeah, that should
That's
probably
what
say.
it should be.
It
Yeah.
should say.
Oh,
Can you make note to correct that, please?
2017.
Anybody else? Mr. Street, after you correct it, will you make roll call?
Mr. Roper?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Resolved, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the following policies as noted.
Can I have a motion,
So
please?
moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
I missed the motion
These
and the
two.
second.
Yeah.
I motion.
Barcheck and Singer.
I motion.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Singer.
Wouldn't be the first time. Questions, comments? Everybody's good? Mr. Street, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Roper?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Do you have any correspondence related to action information?
I have none.
Anybody?
tonight.
What we may need to do. Any other business?
I do have a question. This is directed to some of the committee members. I'm glad Sandy's here. Do we have a date for the facilities finance joint meeting that we're supposed to have with the group?
Tomorrow at 5:30.
Tomorrow at 5:30?
Yeah.
I hope you can make it. That was my fault. I was trying to herd everybody else together and I forgot about you until my email to you today, which you didn't receive.
That's okay, Rick, you can
Okay.
change your
Can you
schedule.
make it
Sorry, we'll remember that on the next
I'll check and see.
contract.
I have a earlier appointment, I'll have to move that around.
And the treasurer's conference.
Okay, thank you.
Good thing you asked. See?
Thanks,
I mean,
thanks,
you know.
Sandy. Sandy rescued me twice today.
Yeah, see?
All right.
We need to also, the
You
board
want the
needs to look
treasurer?
at
Shut the
the
hell.
next work session.
Yes.
All right, so.
Dates you want to throw out now or no?
Throw them out.
I'm good. Let's,
What's today, the 17th? We usually work best on a Wednesday sometimes.
the,
So if we do like,
the 25th next week, or you want to do the 2nd, May 2nd?
it's up to you guys.
25th works for me.
25th works for me.
April 25th.
25th work for you, Bob? It's a Wednesday.
I should be all right.
It
Does
might
not
not,
work
bud.
for
oh
It might
well.
not for Bob.
No, it
I
does
think
not.
It
there's a
doesn't
track
for-
meet.
It doesn't for for Dr. Glykoff, so.
Following week?
May
Second.
2nd?
The
It
2nd?
works.
May 2nd? If it's a Wednesday, no, it'll be track. If we can do it on, I don't have a problem with the Tuesday. Weren't we doing them on Tuesday for a while?
Tuesday the 1st?
The
Wednesday, we're-
24th, we already have a meeting set for the
Tuesday the
24th,
1st?
correct? Well, no, that's for the joint meeting with city council. Have we set that in stone yet,
okay.
Dr. Glykoff?
Yes, what?
So we have a meeting on the 24th with our joint meeting, so everybody's
City
aware.
council?
Yeah, city council meeting at the city council chambers.
Tuesday, May 1st?
No, that's
no,
the
we're
24th, April 24th.
No, I'm asking about Tuesday, May
1st.
1st.
Or Wednesday, Tuesday, May 1st. That doesn't work for me.
What about
Thursday, May 3rd?
I'm fine with that. That works out.
Thursday? I look at how I can make it
Thursday, May
happen.
3rd, that might be good.
Or what about Monday, the 30th? Or Monday's not good?
Monday, the 30th is fine.
I didn't think of that. Yeah, Monday the 30th works too.
Rick?
Monday the 30th?
Yes.
Okay.
And
Noted.
April 24th for the other meeting with the city council, if you want to attend that one.
No, I forgot
also.
all about that one. I bet you have it on my schedule, I just don't have it. So we're going with
30th, I'm hearing?
30th of April,
Yep.
next work session. All right. April 24th. Anybody else? Anything else? Mr. Street, you have anything?
30th, work
Just
session.
just to note that the board meeting that was May the 15th.
Yes.
Yes, if you want to mention that, Mr. Neal.
I
Yeah.
think you have that on your,
Yeah, give that. But the 24th, what is the time for the other board members? Dr. Glykoff?
I
did
thought
we
it was
set
6:30.
I thought it's 6:30 is what I thought. Okay, it's 6:30 for,
Did we move to May
What
22nd?
was that?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
On the
already did.
24th.
Yeah, that's right.
that's
Yeah.
business.
the committee.
All right,
the
yeah, I'm
committee-
gonna read it
yeah,
here, probably
that one's
in a
on-
second, right?
So that's next week. And next Tuesday, so a week from today, and then on the 30th, Monday,
Got
for our
that.
work session.
All right.
And that's
now
6, right?
24th
Six.
and the 30th, correct?
Yes, and 6
Those are
o'clock.
council, and
Yeah.
then the next announcement on the next regular meeting of the Board of Education is going to be, it has been changed from May 15th to Tuesday, May 22nd, in the Media Center located at Brooklyn Intermediate Elementary School, 9200 Biddulph, Brooklyn, Ohio, at 6 p.m. Again, it's been changed to May 22nd.
and thank you for accommodating me.
You're
course.
welcome. That's what
course.
we try to work together. Anybody else?
Please get out and
Motion,
vote.
I'm going to motion to adjourn.
Please get out and vote on May 8th, please.
Is there a motion
Yes.
to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Have a second.
I'll
Got
second it.
2 seconds.
I'll second it.
Mr. Oper, Mrs. Barcheck, and Mr. Street, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Oper?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
7:29.
The board council meeting, we're gonna have it here.
Oh, we're gonna have it this here? We're gonna have it
good.
here this time. Oh, okay.
What was that?
Thank you.
The
Yeah,
joint
so we'll-
council meeting is gonna be here this
We'll
time.
be down in room 173.
173?